This is the time I travelled around the Isle of Wight on an inflatable kayak. April 2021. Lockdown finally lifted and the weather forecast perfect. I drove to Hurst Castle in Lymington and parked up. I bought my camping equipment, food and water for a few days, and my Shipwreck ArrowStream inflatable kayak. My plan was to kayak around the island, wild camping when needed, and taking a few days to appreciate the beauty. By the end of the trip, I'd rack up 110 kilometres over 4 days and see some truly remote and amazing sights. The first leg of the journey was to make the short 1 kilometre crossing from Hurst Castle across to Norton. So at 11 AM Saturday, I headed off. As the ocean flows through this crossing, it gets squeezed, forming a strong current going east. This sped me across in no time. This was my plan for the first day, heading west around the Needles to hit the most remote part of the island first. I'd marked a rocky beach that I'd be able to camp on for the first night. The Needles are chalk stacks that rise 30 metres out of the sea, a well-known landmark of the Isle of Wight. The name originally came from an additional pillar resembling a needle which collapsed in 1764, however the name stuck and continued afterwards. It was great getting to see them so close. As I passed through, the sun lit up the brilliant white cliffs on the other side, highlighting the layers in the rock. From here I'd be following the cliffs until I reached my camping beach, roughly 7 kilometres to go. I arrived at the planned camping beach around 4. There was still a few hours of sunlight left I could have used to keep paddling, but I wanted to take some time to unwind and enjoy the fantastic location. I set up my tent raised up enough to stay out of the high tide and started cooking the juicy steak I'd bought for dinner. I had an amazing view of the white chalk cliffs as the sun set behind them, and I nodded off for the night, enjoying the privilege of hearing the waves crash nearby. This is my one-man tent. Got my pancakes and bacon ready for breakfast. My attempt at bacon pancakes has fallen apart. But still tastes amazing. Alright, setting off on this amazing morning. Sun is rising. Small waves. Letting my shoes drip outside of the boat so it doesn't fill up with water straight away. Oh dear. Whoa. Cool, let's go. second day started tackling the southwest side of the island. Sheltered from the currents, this section of sea was amazingly calm. The cliff face ran the whole length, with very few signs of civilization, creating an amazing wild and lost feeling. 50 metres out to sea, there were shallow rocks everywhere, which had claimed the lives of ships. Eventually I reached the rocky southern tip of the island and felt the sea turn rougher in the currents. Luckily I had the wind on my side, and before long I'd reached Ventnor, a quaint seaside town. 6 hours of kayaking in, and given the brilliant weather, I couldn't help but stop and get an ice cream on the beach. As much as I wanted to rent a hotel room with a beach view and stop for the day, I thought I'd use the supporting winds to cover as much distance as possible. I headed back out knowing I had a few hours of sun left, and the great views continued, with great rocky cliff faces, turquoise waters, lost forests, and wild beaches littering the whole coastline. Past the town of Shanklin and planned on camping just past Sandown. It had been a long second day covering the whole bottom side of the island, for what would be the longest day with over 9 hours in the kayak. As the sun dropped and the temperatures plummeted, I quickly scrambled ashore to find a place to pitch up. Not as scenic as I'd hoped, I was on a patch of grass next to the zoo, but after 9 hours kayaking I was content to pitch anywhere. I went to sleep for what would be a chilly night. So, just setting off on the third day. Sand was a nightmare on the beach. Got in the valve, so I had to wash it out. Got in everything else. Everything is now still covered in sand. But it's an amazing day. The third day was beautifully calm and the warmest yet. I passed over shallow bays, which gave the water a fantastic colour, and mixed with the seaweed dotted around provided an unusual but satisfying sight. I'd done around 70 kilometres by this point and could feel the aches setting in. My mind had started to fully unwind from the hustle of everyday life and started feeling this great sense of freedom. I pushed on for the next destination, Cowes, a town at the northern tip of the island, around 15 kilometres away. Crossing the Osborne Royal Estate and arriving at the edge of Cowes, I found a small pebble beach to set up camp. The sun had exhausted me, but I was treated to an amazing sunset. Tomorrow would be the final leg of the journey. The next morning I packed up and set off early, a calm and clear morning. Although my last day, it wouldn't be easy with currents to battle. I headed towards Cowes with the end in sight. I took a break for lunch before the last leg of the journey. The beaches were laden with scarred dead trees with a creepy empty feeling. I could see Hurst Castle in the distance, and as I got closer I could feel the strong eastern currents fighting against me. Getting back would be tough. Fighting the current and making it across to Hurst Castle, I thought my trip was basically done. However, the last 2 kilometres next to the beach had the fastest currents I'd seen, as it washed into the narrow crossing. I pushed as hard as I could. For every moment I stopped I was being washed straight back. Over a 30-minute sprint, finishing the trip proved hardest. Finally, my 4-day, 110-kilometre wild kayak trip was finished. The inflatable kayak hadn't faulted me at all, and the island weather had been kind to me. I washed up on the beach, completely exhausted. I dragged my bags back to the van and headed home, wondering what the next trip might hold.